Graham, the city of Des Moines is repaving Indianola Avenue all the way from Army Post Road to Highway 65, 69. It's a very significant project. And in the what I would call the northern half of that project, we had an older water main that we replaced. And we replaced part of it. We had a developer install or replace part of it. We have a new 12-inch PVC water main in the northern half of the project. On the southern half of the project, we had existing 12-inch PVC water main that we didn't intend to replace, but we knew that there were going to be some conflicts with the city's new paving and the sewer and whatnot. And our anticipation was that we would incorporate those alterations and relocations required into the city's contract. Well, now the city and the engineering staff have worked together to figure out what those exact alterations and changes are going to be, and the city has asked that instead of incorporating into their contract, we change ordered into the contract that we use to lay the new water main to the north. So this is additional work that we knew was coming, but we didn't know exactly what it was at the time that we awarded our contract to J&K last year for the water main replacement. They're on the site, they're working. We would like to incorporate this additional work into their contract to meet the city's timeline as opposed to trying to bid it out as its own project. So we're asking permission from the board today to add this work to J&K's contract as a change.
So I'm seeking a motion to authorize the CEO and general manager to execute change order number 3 to the 2021 Des Moines Water Main Replacement Contract for Indianola Avenue project in the amount of $178,783. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any comments or questions on item 3H? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 And those opposed? With no opposition, item 3H passes. If it's acceptable, I think what I'd like to do right now, we have a closed session scheduled. I thought I might go ahead and handle the section 4 items so that when we come out of the closed session, we don't have any other discussion or action items, if that's okay. So we have board committee reports, planning committee. Any report from the planning committee this month?
I was at that meeting, and it was just the 5-year CIP which was dealt with.
Thank you. Finance and audit committee, Joel?
Just the audit, which was boring as it thankfully should be. I mean that in that a boring audit is a good audit.
That's right.
Not the presentation or the presenters.
For the Bill Stowe, and I'll ask Andy to chime in if she'd like to. I'd like to talk about it's kind of a broader effort that the Stowe Foundation is involved in with regards to the park, and I talked about this before. Lakeside Labs has interns this summer that are being funded by the Stowe Foundation to look into cooperative projects that could happen in the park. And that's a very kind of a first step in this collaborative effort that Jen Terry and a lot of people have been involved in for the last few months. Those meetings that are continuing to be held are fascinating, and the possibilities, I think, are numerous, to say the least, including the possibility of some further funding coming from Polk County to fund research into education and educational hub opportunities within the park, which would be exciting. And so that's what I've got to say. Is there anything on that that I've forgotten?
No, I just met with them this afternoon, and I met with the interns and Jen this afternoon, and it's very energizing to kind of be around them, to hear their questions and their interest in this work, and kind of listening to all the different partners that have the opportunity to come to the table. So know that they go until they're with us until the end of July, and I'm very interested to see kind of the report that they come up with, and how we take this vision and actually create something with it.
And I'll add, and I don't know if this is public yet, but I'm just gonna say it like it is public. We went to the Greater Des Moines Community Foundation and applied for a grant to fund this kind of research, and we've been awarded that grant to fund these interns for multiple summers. And so the idea would be that this summer we have undergraduate students that are performing this. There's some thought that maybe next summer, depending on what's needed, we could actually have some graduate interns look at education in the park or finances in the park. We don't know yet. You have to finish the one step before they go to the next. But those types of things and questions about what we should be doing next will come to this board before any action takes next summer. I mean, the whole purpose is, as Andrea has work as kind of pulling together a committee, is to make sure we're doing this in a collaborative way. I mean, as we all know, we have a great asset in the park, but it's not Des Moines Waterworks' mission to, be the administrator of an educational hub. It's our idea, to kind of bring people together and do the initial planning and then figure out the structure. So that being said, this board will be informed and be able and have input on the next steps, but I'm pretty excited about it. Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden, I don't have much to say there. The quarterly programming update, Ted?
Is immediately behind the yellow, for those of us who have paper copies, but we are working with the Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden, primarily Jen, working with them, frankly, to implement some of the programming that had been identified in our support agreement with them, and on a quarterly basis they're sharing with us some of the things that they have done in support of that programming, and that's included in the package.
And I will say, and this kind of relates to your earlier item, the type of collaborative attitude that is coming from the Botanical Garden right now to work with us and to work with others is refreshing. I mean, it's something that it's long overdue in this community, that not-for-profits and others that are working in the educational space work together, so I'm also excited about that. Des Moines Waterworks Park Foundation Board, Andrea, Joel.
I'll let you start, Joel, if you'd
Yeah.
like with anything.
I think a couple notable items were the board moving forward with engaging Terry Tabakhorst, if I'm saying that right, some of you may know her, as a paid consultant for development activities, fundraising. She, I guess, has a really good track record there, and there's a lot of confidence and excitement about her bringing some more organization focus to fundraising efforts. And then there was pretty lengthy discussion about negotiations with the city regarding the debt.
And are they working with them? I mean, is the city?
Well, I mean, I think that's Ted and Graham would let those
Okay.
efforts. I think,
There's an opportunity, I guess,
yeah.
that has been laid out for them of how to pay down that debt and on a time schedule. And from my understanding, again, I wasn't at this meeting, so these are follow-up conversations, so correct me if I'm wrong. But there's this feeling that they don't want to limit their abilities to further negotiate and work on paying down this debt by entering into an agreement that defines the parameters. And that at this point, but it may be something that they would like to do in the future with that.
I think that's right. I think the board's feeling is that there's a potential deal and they're interested in that, but they don't see a reason to stop negotiations now and stop seeking a better deal. And I think there may be different opinions from this board about the urgency to get something done.
Here's, Ted and I met with the city council, or the city manager and the mayor on a number of occasions. In the last meeting, 3 weeks ago, it was called by the city manager. Ted and I went over, and the city manager's proposal was that the Park Foundation enter into an agreement where they would pay $50,000 of, think of it this way, the first $50,000 in the revenue that the foundation earns every year, whether that was in income from concerts or donations or what have you, but the first $50,000 would be paid to the city in a non-interest type of loan for 20 years, which would allow the city to begin paying back, or the foundation to pay back its debt without any interest. The city would could count on the debt being repaid. Obviously, if the foundation wanted to pay it sooner, everyone would be happier that would happen, and I think that's a potential. But this would allow the city to move forward and allow the foundation to move forward as well on other projects. I thought it was a pretty good deal, frankly, because it gets everybody to move forward. We had a agreement that we, Ted and I, would bring this back to the foundation and propose it to them with the idea that we would hopefully sign an agreement, or an agreement would be signed with the city by the 15th of July. I'm a little baffled by why the foundation wouldn't sign this agreement, and why their response is that they're going to look at other options. And so
An interest-free loan.
it's an interest-free loan that frankly they could sign, and they could continue to look at all of their options from here on forward. And I have communicated this with the foundation in multiple ways, and they're continuing to think about it, but that clock is gonna come up, and at some point I expect the city to take the deal off the table.
I think based on conversations that I've had, and I haven't followed up with you guys about this yet, that there's a feeling that with bringing Terry on board, she might have or part of her mission has been charged to reach out to city council to see if there's some more negotiation on that number before they sign a deal. And also looking at what other pledges and funding she can bring in along the way.
And also just to make sure everybody's got the same information. The Park Foundation went to the city earlier about the debt that they owed, which was roughly $1.6 million, and asked for the city to forgive all of that debt, and the city decided they would forgive $541,000 of that debt, moving it closer to the $1 million range. So they've already taken one swipe at the city council, and the city council reduced it by $500,000. Again, I will restate how baffled I am that they're not willing to move forward on this.
And I'm curious, I just, I think I might be missing something, so you can help
I may
me.
be too.
Which is how we get in the middle of this.
That's an excellent question and a great year to thanks for bringing this up.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
this is
mean, why
exactly-
does the mayor and the city manager
Yeah.
call in you and Ted to talk
Yep.
about this It's a foundation, we've been very careful to make sure
Yep, separation of church and state.
they're separate and that they're responsible for that. We have a role on that because we have representation on
Yep.
that, but we don't, why are we doing that?
So here's how Ted and I, and Ted can chime in on this too. We don't have responsibility for you guys. It's not our problem.
I understand that.
And, but every time we have a meeting with the city, it gets derailed by the fact that the city is owed this money by the Park Foundation and we should do something about it because it's our park. Now, we've explained to them that it's not our responsibility, but it's a small town, right? I mean, it's our thing. And so the initial ask from the city was that Des Moines Waterworks in some way secure the debt. And I said, absolutely not. Sue Hubbard's head would spin around 3 times and then Diane's
It goes
would.
directly against
Exactly.
what we've said.
And I said, we're not willing to do that. However, because it's our park, we would be, we would like to see the situation resolved. And frankly, from a selfish standpoint, Ted and I would like to have it resolved. And I think Indra, as incoming chair, would like to have this resolved so that we can have meetings with the city where we don't talk about this. And so when the city manager made this proposal to us in a meeting, we kind of grabbed onto it because we thought it was a reasonable offer, one that would allow the Park Foundation to move forward and do other things while it's paying off $50,000 a year, which is a reasonable number, and would allow us to stop talking about it. I think I agree, and I sense your frustration in your voice, Diane, and I agree with you. We're on the same page. It's not our responsibility. However, we'd like to stop talking about it. And also, let me say this, I don't want to say this in the wrong way. If the Park Foundation were to fail and not be an ongoing entity, we would have a political situation with the city where it felt like it still was owed some money. And we might feel like we would enter a similar deal from park revenue, whether it's parks or others, to pay back the debt over time. I'm not speaking for board because I don't want to if we had to take it back, I'm not trying to tie our hands. But there may be an interest in us in seeing this, such a deal signed.
Diane, I think in direct response to your question of why do they come to us, I think the reason is that we have a lot of irons in the fire with the city all the time.
Sure.
We deal with them on almost a daily basis, whether it's replacing water mains on Ingersoll or whether it's, low income payment for water, sewer, and stormwater that's all on our bill, or whatever the case may be. We have a vested interest in the relationship there, and they know that, so they come to us. On the foundation's side, I think there's real frustration that the city won't step up a little more. I think they believe that they've created something fantastic for the city, and the Iron Man was just here, and it's here because the park is here, and it's next to Grays Lake, and there's a tunnel that allows access, and it's an enormous benefit. And can't we just get you to forgive more of the debt? And if they could, that would be fantastic. I think that would be a great outcome. But to Graham's point, I don't want to have to talk to him about it every time I meet with the city for the next 6 years.
Yeah, and I mean, we're always so clear here as to what the arrangements, and I assume when this, and maybe I wrongly assume, that when this thing was set up, that the city was also informed that that was
Absolutely.
the relationship.
They absolutely were, but they come to us because we have the vested interest in relationship with the city. And I think we can help. I have great admiration for what the foundation has accomplished. And I have some faith in their ability to bring this thing home. I just wish we could get this piece of it done and behind us sooner than later. And, maybe it won't be July 15th, but I certainly hope it's sooner.
Joel has to.
Hate to leave on this, but daycare calls.
Yeah,
Oh.
go for it.
There's a drop dead time for that.
Thanks, Joel, thanks for the update on this. Listen, and this is just me speaking, but I think there's agreement here. having a successful park foundation is a good thing. You know, a
Right.
foundation that can raise money and do the things that, and I think it's in the community's best interest. And we just need to get to the point where the foundation can move forward. Right now, the foundation, its hands are tied because we're not gonna let them start any project in the park until the situation is solved. The city's not gonna let them do anything until the situation is solved. The $50,000 a year, 20-year agreement provides them a way to start moving forward. They could start planning the first,
Right,
second phase
but-
tomorrow.
Again, that's not our decision.
I agree.
It's the board's decision.
I'm just saying,
I understand
Yeah.
what you're saying, I.
It's the success of the foundation board.
Yeah, beating the dead horse here, I'm
Yeah.
just saying that when we go and meet with them about it, we allow us to be in the middle of it. And they should be talking to the foundation board.
And I think that
I agree.
that will hopefully happen now that they have a more identified individual to lead those conversations that, and that's been immediately charged with that and only that.
And I think that's hopefully the key. Part of the problem is I think there's been a relationship issue between the city and the foundation representatives where they weren't able to communicate with one another. So they wanted us to be a mediator, but the mediator got slapped, I guess.
Just so often.
Which is always the case when we talk to the city. So anyway, we belabored that, but we will keep you, right, Andrea,
Absolutely.
keep them informed on that and
Yep.
let you know what happens. CEO and general manager's comments.
Graham, I'm going to be brief. We already talked about regional governance. I will comment that demand is increasing. We've seen demands in the upper 70 million gallon range. We peaked at 84 last year, so we're selling some water, which is good. Nitrates, the nitrate removal facility continues to run as we sit here today, but nitrates are starting to come down in the Des Moines and the Raccoon Rivers. So I would anticipate less than 2 more weeks, Mr. Danley.
It's a good guess.
Okay. Thank you. The 6th of July, we are going to have a little media event to roll out the cover crop cedar that we have purchased with, the Polk County purchased with some funding that we provided the city of Des Moines, and the Department of Agriculture is going to provide some reimbursement for that as it is used to put practices on the ground. We're going to do that out at Maffitt. That promises to be an interesting outing. I can't wait to see the piece of equipment. I hope I get to ride on it this time. John. And then I mentioned it at Finance and Audit Committee, but I'll mention it again. Preliminary chemical pricing that we're receiving for next year's chemicals, treatment chemicals, are 50% overall above what they were last year, and most of that is transportation costs. So chemicals are a big part of our book of business, and it looks like there's going to be a meaningful increase in those costs. I think I'll stop there.
All right.
Can I ask two quick things, and I know one is we're gonna talk about PFAS litigation, but I wanted to ask about the federal EPA and their announcement on PFAS, which was, when I read it, so confusing. It's like your water's safe, but no level is safe. And have we received a lot of interest in that, or did it kind of go, because I read it in USA Today.
Right. We haven't received a lot of specific interest. You know, we posted all of our data on the website. We tried to share what had happened on Wednesday, now almost 2 weeks ago, with what the historic health advisories were and what we have seen in our source and treated, and what the new advisories are. The difficulty in addressing an advisory that is orders of magnitude below your ability to test for the contaminant. EPA's own guidance, which says we don't suggest that you do anything differently. We just want you to know. So we are following EPA's advice, which is to provide ready access to the information on what we have found in our testing. We've been very proactive here at Des Moines Water Works. We've been testing on a regular basis since 2019. So we do have some data that we can share. Sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. We're also working with our regulators to understand what the next steps might be. We're looking at options for isolating any potential PFAS contaminated sites away from our sources. We're doing the things that we can, but we have not received a lot of interest. We've also posted on social media. We will be sending it out in our newsletter, our information, and but we have not received a lot. I think maybe one question.
And the second and final thing that I have is I read the press release on staggering
Yes.
irrigation.
Yes.
Do we do anything to follow up other than put out a report? Is there any way that we can figure out whether that's having an impact anywhere? I mean, can we talk about trying to figure out a more proactive way other than sending out a press release and say, hey, would you guys stagger
Yeah.
to,
We have done other things, and as an example, we have communicated directly to irrigation contractors, the people who install these systems and go out and set them up. And we've done that kind of thing.
and this is for me a longer discussion, but I'd like to talk about what we do to follow up with them to get data on what's being
Sure.
done, and it may be contacting campuses to find out when they're watering. I don't know if we've done any of that kind of follow-up to try to
We
get
haven't gotten into that level of detail.
to stagger, but if we're gonna be constantly over the next couple of years dealing with this, I think we need to take a more formal approach
Yeah.
to this. And again, it's a longer term discussion.
Anecdotally, Monday used to be our peak demand day of the week during times like these, hot, dry times. We've asked people not to water their grass on Mondays. The peak day has shifted to Wednesday the last 2 years. So I believe that the messaging has had some impact. We've had conversations about updating the rules and regulations to require that irrigation or lawn watering be scheduled based on that schedule, at least in Des Moines. We haven't gone there yet.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking for, and maybe the rest of the board can chime in, is again, maybe we set up a small task force to formalize and talk about what could we do for shading the peak
Sure.
and
Splitting
Sounds
the
like a
demand.
good agenda item for the planning committee, really. I mean, this is planning, we're gonna get through this.
it may start with data gathering and that kind
Well, and a great first step for something like that is evaluating what other communities are doing across the country, and especially in the Southwest and
Yeah.
places where they've been dealing with this for decades.
Yeah.
So there are places we can go. I
of.
see Michelle writing it down already.
Yeah, again,
Planning committee
I don't
agenda.
wanna get into detail at 5:20, but when we have another thing, but I just wanted to raise it while I was thinking about it.
Great.
Very good, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ted. There's the injuries report there, contract status and professional service agreements, and the establishments of our other dates for our other meeting. So now we're gonna go, we have I'm gonna ask for a motion to go into closed meeting.
Is Jen gonna give us an update?
Not tonight.
Not tonight?
No,
I saw that wasn't on the agenda and
So we're gonna go, I'm gonna ask for
She
another
was
motion
too.
to go into a closed session, and just as the order of business, we're gonna go into a closed session to talk about PFAS pollution. We're not gonna take any action when we come out of this meeting, we'll just come out of this meeting, or come out of the closed session to adjourn this meeting. What I'm looking for is a motion for the Board of Waterworks trustees to hold a closed session under section 21.51C Code of Iowa to discuss litigation strategy with counsel concerning PFAS pollution to avoid disclosure likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of Des Moines Waterworks Iowa Code 21.51A and 22.74 permit a closed session to review confidential records which represent and constitute the work of an attorney, which are related to litigation or claims made by or against a public body. Is there a motion to go into a closed session under that statement?
So
In a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and we'll take a roll call vote on this.
Bolton,
yes.
Gillette,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Muntz.
Again, we'll clear the room, we'll close down the Zoom. We will not take any action, and we have no other business when we come out of this other than to adjourn our meeting.